might have been at a PRJ board meeting back when I was a reporter. With the sandwich, remember that?
Everybody was cowering from you. They didn't want to say anything because
Right.
Can I hear you?
Yeah, I thought that the,
Yes.
last Thursday night when Josh was at the library. Smith, me, and, newspaper guy. You have any questions? Yes, but I'm not going to answer here. Excuse me?
Amelia, can you say
Good
something?
morning.
I need one.
Yeah. Hi, how is everyone this morning?
Good. Good.
Your voice comes down from
Good.
on high.
Haha.
That good kind of the two
Yep.
officers.
Nope.
We are live and everything else.
Okay, so we'll get started. Perfect. Okay, I'd like to call to order the March 14th Economic Development Authority meeting of Amelia County. I've determined we have a quorum, so we will get started. Mr. Harvey, could you do the roll call for us, please?
okay. Mr. Dickenbach,
Here.
Peter. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Here.
Ms. Bullock here, Ms. Scott here, and Mr. Vaughn.
Here.
Mr. Chairman,
All right.
everybody voted.
All right, perfect. All right, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag back here, it's moving around. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Like all ice. All right, Mr. Llewellyn, would you lead us in an invocation?
I will. Let us pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, again, we come to you as we conduct this meeting and ask for the grace and knowledge you can give each one of us as we go through and deal with the business of our wonderful Amelia County. Lord, we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, to give us everlasting life. In his name, we offer our prayer. Amen.
Amen. All right, well, welcome. We have some visitors with us. We've got Taylor and we've got the crew from Farmville today, Sherry and Ilsa, welcome. And I know that we have a few things to go over. It shouldn't be a real long meeting, but I know the marketing will take some time. So I'm glad everybody's here. We got all the members, so it's wonderful. All right, do we have any communication from any citizens? All right, we'll move on. You have a copy of the minutes right behind the agenda, and they've been previously emailed to you. I'll give you a minute to review those. And if you have any corrections, please offer them. If we don't have any corrections, we'll accept the meeting as, or the minutes as approved.
I do have a question, but it's not pertaining to the minutes necessarily.
Okay.
My absence last month was not excused.
Well, I guess it was. Ms. Scott called.
Okay.
Okay.
It said that she was called ahead of time, and said she had something else she had to do.
What, personal issue?
Right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, I didn't know. I apologize. I'll correct that.
Yeah, we'll correct that. Sorry about that.
Do we need something besides an X there?
We put an E.
I put an E.
Put an E?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Good.
Also did that for Mr. Llewellyn on January.
Actually, Mr. Tatum called in as well.
Okay.
Let me get that corrected. So.
Well, let's see. Mr. Llewellyn, where, that was the day he had carried Nancy to the
Right.
doctor.
I think he's already got it.
And this boy, you had called, you had a,
Yep.
you had a work engagement or something, all right? We can go back to December and everybody is good.
Yep.
If we can make those correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Mhm. All right, well, welcome. You have a copy of the minutes right behind the agenda, and they've been previously emailed to you. I'll give you a minute to review those. And if you have any corrections, please offer them. Okay, any other corrections?
Move the approval of the minutes.
All right, second,
Second.
all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. And then that brings us to the acceptance of the treasurer's report. Mr. Harvey, is there anything that you want to go over with us on those?
I think it's all pretty self-explanatory.
Yep.
Be happy to answer any questions if anybody's got any. Might not have as much cash in the bank as we did before, but our balance sheet is still up because we purchased something of value.
Exactly.
We didn't spend it on anything that we don't have something of value. There you go.
Yeah.
Move the acceptance of the financials.
Second.
All right, minutes are accepted. I'm sorry, financial report. That's, we don't need to vote on those.
Nope. Well, we do.
And if you guys can take one and pass it
We
in.
should vote on the acceptance of the financial.
We should.
So,
I feel like the financials, we don't need to vote on because we don't vote to accept those, correct?
Yeah, that's what we're voting on to accept
We
them.
have done it in the past at times, but acclimation.
I think it'd be better to do.
So we could vote on it.
All right,
You'd rather?
then there's been a motion and a second to accept the financials. All in favor of accepting the financial, please respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we will file the financial reports as voted on. Okay. Mr. Harvey, are you ready to give us your report?
I can give you a report. It's not the same one as I had given you yesterday. Golly, I tell you, just never know what you're gonna get on the telephone with. I guess everybody has seen this, ice plant in Glen Allen is closed.
Yep.
That's where all of our birds go. I was holding out hope until about 15 minutes ago that these houses up here, they sent them to Pennsylvania to the free plant that they're opening up. I just got this text back from a longtime friend who lives here. This is our last block. It's going to hurt a lot of people's businesses, employees, families. Morning, thanks, and it got a set of hands. So, if I leave, it'll be because Joe Guthrie is returning my call. He's the Commissioner of Agriculture. We just,
I think it's,
gotta regroup, but that's major. That is a major thing that struck us yesterday.
I think that plant employs 692 people.
How many-
That doesn't include all the trickle down.
Right.
How many farmers in Amelia will it affect?
I don't have that. Guess it's maybe 20 farms with poultry houses.
No more than 20.
It's like everything else. There are fewer of them, but they've gotten bigger.
Bigger houses.
And
On the upgrade, that's exactly right.
they put these guys through it about every 6 or 7 years. Technology comes along to help control the inside of the house. And if they renew their contracts, if they're going to continue to grow birds, they're going to have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep their houses in that type of condition. So anyway, all the other things that would have been in the county administrator's report sort of pale. I don't really have anything else to report. If anybody's got any questions about anything else, I'd be glad to answer them.
So there's no contingent for the local farmers to send them to Carolina or? Yeah, in
This-
this report?
No, sir. The report only mentioned processing plant.
Right.
And I didn't know for sure until just a few minutes ago that a farmer had been notified this was the end, and he's a good operator. He's not somebody that would be kicked to the curb.
Get the corn and everything.
Like the feed mill, corn sales, it's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, they've not been upgrading up through that much. It's been really slow getting crop in and out of there.
So we got more work to do.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Harvey? All right, well, that brings us to old and new business. First on the list is Richardson Road project update.
Okay. That, actually, is there anything in this book on the update?
No, I haven't seen anything.
All right. Mr. Chairman, if you'd give me a second, I'll get Neil Barber's email sent out at the end of the week. It was his update. Neil has had some, little bit of medical work done, and he's not able to get on the road right now.
While we're waiting on that, Brady can do his presentation with regards to the zoning.
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Take that on, Taylor.
You catch my words for the minutes. Rezoning advertisements were developed and sent to the monitor. The first one was run March 9th, last Thursday. The next one will be run this Thursday, March 16th. That, of course, is for the planning commission meeting. That'll be held Monday, March 27th. The adjoining property owner notices will go out today. So if you haven't had any feedback, due to the monitor running the notice, we'll likely start getting some feedback in over the next, probably by the end of the week, once people start receiving those mailed notices. Again, that'll go to all the adjoining property owners, whether directly abutting or across the road from the property, as if the road wasn't there. We have engaged in discussions with Swift Creek Forest Products, which is the adjoining property owner that owns the 10-acre narrow strip. They consented in terms of allowing that parcel to be a part of this rezoning request. However, they requested that an additional 17-acre parcel be included. I've given Ashley some maps of that, and she can pass those around. They're highlighted in blue. The 10-acre parcel, again, is the narrow strip. And then the 17-acre parcel is the one that abuts the road. And is adjacent to the facility. The properties, there's two, as you'll see on that map, there's two small properties right on 360, residential properties. The one on the left side, or the western side, is owned by Swift Creek Forest Products. So they own that residential property. The other one is privately owned. So there's only really one property that is in that vicinity on the side of 360. It's an older home. I've driven by there. You all probably seen it multiple times. There's two houses basically side by side to each other right there in that little area. And it's the first one you get to if you're traveling westbound on that right side. That would be a private owner. Of course, they will be notified, but Swift Creek does own the other property, and currently, I think, just rents it out for residential use. That property that they own is surprisingly zoned B1, the one that's residential. So it's actually only one property right now that would remain with a residential zoning, which would be that house on the right. So with them requesting that additional 17 acres, that property abuts their M2 zone, which is the zoning that they have for their main facility. It's actually an M2 zone property, similar to all the other zoning in the area, like the landfill and all that is M2. And so it really, in a way, is already inconsistent having a residential zone property abutting an M2 zone property, which is a no-no according to our zoning ordinance, which is why you all are going M1, being that abutting the other subdivision, I can't remember the name of it, that is right off of Richardson Road, you know, wouldn't be proper to have an M2 zoning abutting that that residential zone. So with that being said, I spoke with Taylor and we felt like it was a pretty reasonable ask and we needed to meet those advertising requirements. And so we went ahead and included that 17-acre parcel along with the request. So it'll be 27 acres of their property in addition to the 132 acres of EDA property going before the planning commission to potentially be recommended for approval for the M1 rezone. They have not yet, they will be submitting a letter signed by their principal that would be signed and authorized, included in the agenda packet and the materials to the planning commission, granting that permission for the EDA is signed. So we've got a verbal permission and they're sending a signed letter. So that's all the updates for now. Again, like I said, the advertising have run, the adjoining property notices we got today, so all that would be completed. And then we'll just be, you know, making sure we have as much material as possible for the planning commission as they make their recommendation and conduct a consideration for the request.
What time is the planning commission meeting?
It's 7:30 p.m. Monday, March 27th. And then if all goes well, you know, we'll of course follow up that week running the advertisements as long as there's no deferral in terms of their recommendation. They do have the ability to defer a recommendation for up to 60 days. So they could defer to another meeting if they wanted some further information before they make a recommendation. As long as there's no deferral, it would be advertised and the adjoining property notices will be sent again for the board hearing, which would happen April 19th. Last comment, sorry. I also have sent the information and the conceptual site plan to VDOT to get VDOT's comments, which would be something that the planning commission would want.
Okay, is it a good thing for us to alert the planning commission of our time frame? Not to try to get them to hurry, but if they understand we're applying for a grant that could replace the
more
money we-
information, certainly, the more information they have, the better they'll be able to work it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I wouldn't want them to defer, you know, just because they, you know, didn't have time or whatever, because, you know, I mean, it's taxpayer money and we want to get that grant in as quickly as possible for the, so whether it's you or myself or Taylor, we just kind of clue them in on our accelerated schedule for getting that done.
Yes, sir.
Who are we gonna have at the planning commission? We need Neil there.
Neil was planning on being there. He's planning on being there.
Okay. I guess any of us that care to be there can be there.
Absolutely.
We need to continue or can we just be
Nope.
there? Okay.
That's correct.
We would just be there to answer questions. We wouldn't be there to vote on it.
That's right. Okay. So anybody who can be there, you're welcome to come and help answer any questions or just be there for support. We appreciate it. Thank you for all your work on that.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so now we've got Taylor Bryant. If we could move into the finance
Yes.
and aspect of the Richardson Road property, of course, from VML Vaco.
Good morning, everyone. I've got one scripture here just passed around. Apologize, we just got that yesterday, so. So we submitted a request for proposals to our network of national and regional community banks, and it's all I'm sure now, right now is a pretty difficult time in the banking sector. Yesterday was pretty much unprecedented. One of the banks we work with, actually, Signature Bank, we have a couple done deals with them in the past couple of years. So Banks were a little bit contracting. And this predated that. We got one proposal in by the deadline. And that was from American National Bank, and that's what you have in front of you. That's out of their South Boston office. And I'll just touch on some of the highlights there. I wouldn't say this is a very competitive proposal. I think that we can probably do better. The way it's structured is more of a commercial real estate transaction than a local government. And so the banks, that's what the American National Bank is. It's more a commercial bank than a municipal finance department. So sort of the challenging parts of that proposal were the rate. It's a taxable rate, but it's at 6%, which is pretty high for 10 years. That's the tax equivalent yield of that tax exempt would be 5.4%. And we're seeing a lot of rates that we get now for 10 years, about 4.75. So I think that's a little bit high. So one of their requirements is that the EDA would have to establish a deposit account with keep a minimum deposit balance of $250,000 in the account, which seems overly restrictive to me. That's not usually a covenant that we see with typical municipal loans. I think a lot of banks that are in this market often realize it's hard for municipalities to move money outside the locality. So I did talk to them yesterday, and I covered that. Their rate is pretty firm. I think there's some wiggle room in the deposit requirement. And then the last item would be there's a negative pledge requirement. So we sent the RFP out, the request out. With a request, the security would just be a moral obligation pledge of Amelia County. And that was to simplify the transaction and keep the cost down so that we wouldn't have to go through some sort of lease back agreement and collateralize the property. And then ultimately you'd have to, each time you sold off the lot or complicates the issue. And so they were open to using a moral obligation, but they added a negative pledge covenant to it, which, if you don't know, is pledge not to encumber the property going forward, which doesn't really work in my mind with the transaction because you're going to, I think assume be selling these off piece by piece. So I suggested if they want some sort of protection on that end, that maybe they could have a condition where as a parcel is sold, that allocable portion of the loan balance is paid down. They're talking about that internally, but all of those factors together, I think we can do a little bit better than that. So yesterday, I reached out to a number of banks. Just a lot of these banks, they'll get it, look at it, and just get it up window. So I think 3 of them will probably get at least 3 more now. Taylor put me in touch with Cedric at Citizens here, and it sounded like they were interested in it. Obviously, local banks are pretty competitive on that. This year. Then Benchmark Community Bank seemed interested there. I don't think they have an office in Amelia, but they're in the surrounding area. They competed on deals before. And then potentially Key Bank, which is it's actually a municipal finance corporation. They're out of Arizona. So at this point, we have an offer, but I would say we just hold off and maybe a couple days and.
Perfect.
Agreed.
You don't have to put out an additional RFP since these
No.
will be submitted past.
Right, so it's kind of, I would say, out of the RFP process now, went through the process, didn't really find anything that met the requirements, I would say. So these other banks that I've reached out to, I'm discussing with them on a personal basis. Usually bankers they have a relationship with. Yes.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions for Mr. Bryant?
Any projected timeline for 2 weeks?
Yes, so usually, we leave an RFP out for 2 weeks. It shouldn't take the bank that long to do it. But now, they were specific thought and stuff how it goes. Some sort of indication of what they'll offer.
All right.
How quickly would we need to close on a loan, a new note? So if you hear back from another bank and it's a pretty good offer in a couple of days, we don't get together for another month.
Oh, no, it'll be a longer timeline than that. This will require, the EDA board and the board of supervisors to consider it. And also documents that will be drafted by Chris Paul, who's the bond counsel engaged in this. So that'll probably be, time for the 4 to 5 weeks.
Any other questions? Thank you for working on that. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay,
All right, so another segment here. This is Neil Barber's report. And he had touched on the finance and he touched on rezoning, but his notes on the VEDP grant, the application process, application to the VEDP for a grant in the range of $750,000 to conduct due diligence activities to raise the tier rating from a 2 to a 3 and conduct preliminary development activities to make the site marketable for business and industrial prospects. The announcement of the 2023 grant cycle is dependent on the General Assembly passage of the budget amendments for fiscal year 23-24. Both the House and Senate versions of the budget contain an increase for this particular program. So he's monitoring things. Says the letter of intent to file for this grant is May or June of 23. The final application needs to be July and August of 23. So hopefully the General Assembly will have moved by May or June, and Neil will have everything together to submit this application.
And Brady's, VDOT on the property, that's gonna help us too when we get ready to file.
That's correct. And one last thing I'd add is, we had talked about, there was a lease on the property that involved the farming. And we are working on getting that extended. I think the EDA, to remind everybody, had said, let's continue with the same operator there. Because this is going to be a very temporary thing. It's not something like the Ashman place was, where we bought it with no specific use in mind, and we ended up holding it about 10 years. Because this is going to transition pretty quickly, it was felt to be best to just maintain the same lease or leases that might be up there. So we're working on those now.
anybody have any thoughts on any of that or questions?
Do we need a vote on that? Continue any leasing, existing leases?
I think it's pretty clear that that's the sentiment of the
Consensus?
EDA, so we can
Okay.
move forward with that if you'd like, without a motion.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harvey. So that brings us to letterpress audit update. Are you ready, Ilse?
We're ready. I wanted to thank Julia for being willing to join in as well. So Julia is my team member, account executive with Letterpress. She's actually hailing from Rhode Island, but she just recently moved up there and has a lot of local experience. She helped kind of lead the team in conducting the audit. And I also want to point out Sherry McGuire for being willing to fund the audit through the Longwood University Small Business Development Center as part of kind of their community support effort. So we often do audits for larger companies that are looking to grow through the SBDC as a service. And this was a slightly larger audit we did for the county, which was kind of a lot of fun to do. So we appreciate it. As a reminder of the process, we met, was it January with you guys? To talk about your goals, your outcomes, why you wanted to talk about communications, what you were hoping to achieve from that. I'll go through and kind of recap what we saw as those goals. We then went and actually, I wanted to also kind of thank Brady and Ashley and Taylor have been absolutely amazing. We've met with them multiple times since then, getting more information and details from the county staff perspective that have gone into this audit as well. And it's going to provide not just some recommendations around communications, but also we started an index of resources that will be helpful to Ashley as she's working on the website and some other things. So y'all got some interesting different things than we normally do out of this, mainly because staff was so helpful. So Ashley, I think you're ready. Yep, I can click through.
You mean to Margaret or Julia, PC?
I think it's, yeah, I think it's probably okay. Julia, can we hear you?
Yeah, no, I'm fine, but I also have it up myself.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah. There was one other thing. Oh, Mr. Chairman, I know you were talking about 11:30, so I'll plan to present till about 11:15. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
And if anyone has questions, just shout. It's a lot. I'm not planning to go over all of the details. That's one reason we decided to send it out in advance. So I'm going to do kind of like a high level overview, and we'll particularly spend time at the end in the opportunities section, talking about what we see as next steps or opportunities for synergy. But if you have any questions or thoughts, raise your hand and let you know there's no such thing as a stupid question. If you have it, probably other people have it too. I think sometimes when things like website and social come up, people are afraid to ask questions because they're afraid it's going to sound like they're not keeping up with the times. But I'm not keeping up with all the times, which is one reason why I don't conduct all the aspects of this audit. We have a person who does social, does the social piece. We have team members that just do website stuff. They do the website piece, all of that. So as an overview, something you'll find in your board pack is the total review. We'll talk first about where you are, and this is really a synthesis of what we heard from both the EDA and staff about goals and what's been done in the past and what's working. We then did an analysis of social media, website, and then we actually did something special and unique for you guys, which is looking at other existing owned channels. So y'all have a lot of own channels are the things you control fully. So that'd be your website, brochures. I always say if there's a typo on it and it's your fault, it's an owned channel, right? It's an earned channel if the reporter did it and it's their typo, right? And it's a paid channel if you pay for someone to see it. But owned is, and you'll actually have a lot of interesting resources that for rural communities, it's really worth leveraging because people aren't just on social and they're not just on website. As a matter of fact, most of the current interaction that staff is getting from the community is around phone calls, right? So we have to make sure that y'all are reaching your community everywhere they are at, right? Not just totally doing a hard left turn into digital, but bringing in the digital, but also maintaining the traditional, the owned channels that you also have. And then finally, we'll end with kind of some opportunities we saw, next steps, and kind of a phased approach. And then finally, an addendum. So this is actually our first start at an index of county assets. This is something that come up in the meeting as y'all start talking about some of the assets that isn't usually mentioned or talked about, such as, I'm going to say this wrong, but the aerial park. The
Aerodome?
The aerodome, thank you, yes. Things like that. So working on creating that list of assets is something else that we started working on for you guys. So what came up to us when we talked about who is Amelia County? The three words that seem to really come up is this idea of personableness, right? Supportive, and then this agricultural or rural component seem to be the three kind of key things or words or ethoses that really describe the county. And that list of words, if y'all are in agreement with it, can be very helpful to Ashley and Brady and Taylor as they're doing communications to try to keep those things front and center, right? So what I'm seeing when I see this list is you don't want to focus too much on you want to come across as professional, but you want to keep that friendly tone, even on your website, even on your social, right? You don't want to lose who you are in your forms of communication. So keeping those words front and center will be helpful for ongoing communications. This also came from our conversations with you guys, talking about what you offer to residents and businesses. So we talked about that rural lifestyle, the natural beauty, agriculture, agritourism as one component. Then that customized support, especially for businesses or even residents, that conversation. We just saw an example of that right now, talking about the impact of the poultry processing and Taylor being in direct contact with a producer, talking about the impact of that. That gets to that customized, very personal. And this is a value you bring that a lot of counties aren't able to do that are larger. They lose touch, right? So y'all have that direct line. And then you have one unified local government. There's not a lot of tension between having to deal with a city and a town and a county or things like that. So you'll have, you're minimizing kind of red tape and regulations and things like that because there's only one source that has to be gone to be dealt with. And then also your history as a key component that you have that you're carrying forward. In terms of audiences and goals, it seemed like the first and primary audience that the EDA had was the citizens of Amelia County, for them to be aware of what's going on, to be educated on some of the larger issues, but also to elicit a sense of pride and excitement internally was something that, like a celebration of who we are, was something that really came from our conversations. Then we have existing business owners. For one, for them to feel supported and to know that they're supported, but also to encourage them to collaborate with each other, those sorts of things, and to make sure that they know how the county can support them, right? That y'all are offering lots of things, so making sure existing business owners know how they can be supported. We also have a very specific piece here, which is around making sure we're retaining some of those larger businesses that are there in this community and their tax dollars, so they can continue to grow and flourish here, right? So that's a kind of that also helps with the county's bottom line too, right? And then our third audience we have is new businesses. So attracting new businesses, making sure that they feel welcome as they come in, but also increasing awareness outside the county about what makes Amelia unique. So talking about some of those stories, but even this goes into that larger conversation of making sure that people in neighboring counties or regions or Richmond are aware of what y'all offer and do that would make them want to actually locate a business here. So in terms of prioritizing your audiences, it seems like the first goal is the citizenry, then it's the businesses, kind of a connected approach, and then finally that new business approach. But almost foundationally, making sure you're communicating well with your existing before you start. In the business world, we say organic growth is the least expensive form of growth, right? And so that's kind of what we're talking about here, is making sure you have that organic growth going well before you work on new development. Any thoughts or questions about the audiences?
You did a good job. I can't believe that the few meetings you had with us and how it's awesome.
That's Julia. So Julia is a great distiller of information, and we did have some great follow-up conversations. We also gave Taylor and Ashley and Brady a chance they got a preview of this about a week and a half ago to help make sure we were on track too, and they gave some great input too. So there's a lot of effort in this. We always like to do this, important for communications, to really think about what does success look like. If we spend time or energy on communications, how will we know it's successful? And sometimes it can be easy for, I'll call them out, elected boards or other organizations to feel like, oh, we got a press release and that's successful. Or, oh, look at our cool ad that I saw on NBC 12. I'm super excited. But if their primary outcome isn't being achieved by kind of some of the sexier stuff, then it makes them feel good, but it might not have the desired result. Does that make sense? So we always feel like it's helpful to lay out those measures of success. So we have increased awareness of the county's unified identity, right? So really kind of helping the county think of itself as a brand or a place that's unique, not just south of Chesterfield, right, or north of Farmville, but actually as its own unique place that has value. Increased attendance at local events, increased county capacity to support more local businesses, increase in the number of businesses reaching out for support. So one of the ways we'll know communication is successful is if the county actually starts hearing from more businesses. And then increased interest in the industrial parks or other assets that potentially would be provided to businesses that are coming into the area. So those are kind of ways, after you work on some of these recommendations over the next few years, you can step back and look at this list and say, are we seeing this? If we're not, maybe we need to be adjusting our approach or tweaking it. We're not getting the goals we were looking for. Another way of putting that is your KPIs, your key performance indicators. We also talked to the county staff about what's working and what's not. So your word of mouth is currently your strongest channel. When we talked already about how residents are already reaching out by phone, even more than email, that face-to-face, in-person contact is really essential I think you will start to see that shift. Ashley's doing a lot of hard work on the website and getting it to be streamlined in terms of contact and stuff. So hopefully, honestly, it's easier for county staff if there can be some forms or emails or other things that can come in so they can pace their work more instead of having to have these real-time conversations all the time. So hopefully we can work to adjust that load a little bit so staff has time to give the attention calls need. But those who, like me, would prefer to pay their I'm trying to think of my form for my personal property. I would rather be able to do that at 11 o'clock at night, right? And then take it in the next day than have to call someone to talk about it, right? So giving all sorts of individuals different ways to reach out. And you already have a good relationship with the monitor, right? So that's another thing. Sometimes that's true in communities, sometimes it's not, but at least it's getting the message out in a fairly stable way. So that's a huge asset, and that's not currently. That is not an asset to take for granted. We've had a lot of small papers close. There's a real challenge around that, especially in our South Side area. So it's something to really, even though we're talking about y'all going on social or other things, don't take for granted that relationship. And then what's not working, so we talked about how the digital channels currently aren't really being widely used by your residents or businesses, as opposed to kind of those analog channels we talked about. And currently the challenge of not having a full-time marketing role. So marketing tasks are kind of being divided across individuals, and can be hard to take the time or energy to coordinate that all together, this is a classic challenge for a lot of rural communities. It's not unique to you guys. Okay, that's a synopsis of kind of like everything we took into account before we did our analysis. Any thoughts or things we want to add? It's a lot. It's a fire hose coming your way. You have this to go back to, and I'm happy to answer questions via email or anything else afterwards as well. So social media, we looked at, and Julia, would you be willing to speak a little bit about the various social media accounts that we looked at in terms of which ones we chose to focus on?
Well, we didn't actually do really an audit of existing channels because the recommendation was to sort of merge a couple channels into one so that we would be building one audience and then have more content to share to that one audience. So I mean, this is just the one, this Amelia County, Virginia Facebook handle is the one that we looked at.
Yeah,
but there are, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
There are on the website currently, there's a list of maybe 10 other Facebook channels. So we didn't delve into those individually. We focused on just this one, but the recommendation was to merge a couple together.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we saw, especially with your limited resources, trying to maintain multiple channels with multiple focuses is taking a lot of energy. So we focused on one, but pulling them together or stop maintaining some of them. So you have one, takes a lot of time and energy to build an audience and get them engaged and to know this is the source. So I usually don't recommend launching new social accounts unless you have to. So that's one of our simplest. So we chose one that seems like, especially this handle, Amelia County, Virginia, seems like the most obvious kind of handle to lean into. So that's one of our recommendations, is merging it all together for you. We have some specifics there, but I'll go through. One of the things we shared and we'll talk about is coming up. This is something we do with a lot of our clients, is coming up with what we call content pillars, which is coming up with some themes that you'll post about regularly, and that makes things easier for your staff and for your community to know what to expect. So I'll talk about this at the very, very, very end. And actually, Taylor, this one's a surprise to you, but I'm going to share with you the city of Alexandria has a very comprehensive policy about social media. And one of the things they talk about is, here's the things we're going to post about. So it sets some clarity about those sorts of things. So that's something I'm going to share a link with. I was thinking about this last week. It's like, oh, we should share this as having a clear policy. If this is our social media, this is how we use it, just so the public knows, and it sets expectations. So people can't be frustrated that you're not posting pictures of their garden, or whatever it is. Here's some examples of content we recommend. Julia, do you mind talking about these really quick?
Sure. So what I was trying to get to before is that we didn't spend a ton of time assessing the channel that you have. We kind of looked to other channels and best practices. So these are a couple other counties, Appomattox and Botetourt. So just highlighting some of the more fun content that you may want to provide to help engage citizens so that they're interested in the content. 'Cause there's always going to be content that you have to post that's, you know, the meeting announcements and things like that that are maybe not going to get as much engagement, but then you're also going to want to have some posts that people will want to interact with, such as showcasing all the natural beauty of Amelia County.
I like this example because you'll see that actually the Appomattox County one had a great engagement, like 22 reactions to it. And you'll notice this is a picture that Ashley or Brady could take with their phone. It's not a super fancy picture, right? But it's authentic, it feels real, it's still engaging. So don't feel like you have to. We have this picture from Botetourt County, which is beautiful. And as y'all work on your website content and things like that, you'll have some of those images. But people really want authenticity. So don't let it stop you that you don't have beautiful professional images for everything, right? The other point that goes along with this is it's really easy for government organizations to feel like, well, people should just care because we're the government or we have important things to say and they should just care. But if you choose to take the time and energy and staff's time and energy to be on Facebook, that means that you have to play by Facebook's norms. And part of that is grabbing people's attention, right? Or keeping their attention. So it means having engaging content or personable content or things like that. If you take a lot of time and energy on your Facebook, you're literally just doing those business notices and those announcements. You're going to be wasting your time, right? It's kind of like doing a TV ad where you just put some text on a colored background. You say, oh, we did an ad, right? So if you choose to do Facebook, you're going to have to play by some of those games. I remember the communications director for Alexandria actually talked about how they had started working on their blog posts having almost what he called clickbait type titles. You know, like, you won't believe what happened here. Not quite like that, but they're like, you know, we are having to fight for attention, so we have to use some of those same rules to do that as the other organizations are, businesses are, right? To be competitive. Not super crazy, right? But even just exciting news for Amelia County, find out what we're doing to help poultry producers, right? I'm trying to, you know, how Amelia is taking a negative and turning it to a good. I'm excited for that headline to find out how we're gonna do this pivot. The other big piece for social, and this really impacts some of our recommendations around staff time and energy. With Facebook, you cannot just post. You have to actually, it is a social media. It has to be an interaction and a conversation. So there's one aspect of that that's about monitoring it, right? Just being aware of what people are saying. And there's another aspect of that of interacting. So if you have a social channel, people actually expect to use it as a customer service tool. So if people comment or send you a Facebook message and you do not respond to it, it's going to be like if they sent you an email and your staff didn't respond to it, right? So there's something to be aware of as part of social media. Isn't just creating the content, but it's taking the time and energy to actually respond to people when they comment. All that is a whole new channel that has to, because that's why people, if they have a bad experience, put it on Twitter and they expect to get their flight refunded, right? Like, I complained about this. So there's some expectation of this. And if the county doesn't engage, it's going to be seen as a deficiency, right? So, Julia, would you mind talking about these two examples around engagement that we had?
Sure. Just, you know, people like to engage with and react to photos, especially photos of people they know. So don't be afraid to share photo albums from events. Also, there's this post from Prince Edward County about a Wawa coming to Prince Edward. So that was something that people were really excited about. People had questions, but just making sure that you're also replying. So you can see at the very bottom of that screenshot, you can see that Prince Edward County replied to comments. So just making sure that you're having that two-way communication.
There's a question going on when I taught the session for VLGMA summer conference that included Chase City and Alexandria and Powhatan. One of the conversations that larger localities are struggling with is whether social media comments count as public input. And kind of the thought is generally not. One, because it can be anonymous. Two, people can kind of say whatever. If they really want to have input on the Wawa, then they should come to that. They should care enough to show up for that meeting or write an email or whatever it is to do it. However, and this is why some counties are afraid to post. They don't, maybe they don't want to have a big, beautiful picture of the Wawa that's going to actually make it go around because they're kind of concerned. This planning commission now has a really nice heads up of what the concerns are going to be, what the questions are going to be. They can be thinking about how they're going to respond to some of the things, but they've actually done a little bit of a test on what the community input is, right? So even though this won't necessarily count as community input, they'll have an idea of sentiment overall and some things that might be brought as issues, right? So even though it can be scary to open yourself up for input, it can actually be potentially, I think, advantageous and useful to be able to prepare a plan for it.
Survey without a survey.
Right. Or a survey before the survey, right? To even know what's the questions we actually do need to ask. Exactly right. I know this is this is one reason that it can be scary to get on social media, right? When you have to post certain things or certain meetings and you're all of a sudden get a bunch of rash of negative. But once again, if you see that as, oh, this is preparing us to know how to handle this in the meeting, it can be quite advantageous. Julia also shared with you guys, and this is in front of our report, a kind of a best practices guide for community engagement, which is primarily about this piece, and it's for county staff to use a reference to think about how to deal with negative comments, how to deal with positive comments, those sort of things as a resource, because engagement is so important. Julia, is there any, we included here some campaign ideas for kind of staff or whoever's doing your social media to look at as they're creating content, whether that's focusing on educating current citizens, existing business owners, audiences we already talked about. And we kind of talked about 4 potential content pillars or campaign ideas. So one about informed citizenry, one about business in Amelia. So highlighting existing businesses, especially those who have been able to launch or are growing in the county, highlighting resources for new businesses. We have that whole section in our index we've been creating of those resources that you could talk about. Some welcome to Amelia type content that's meant to maybe educate people who aren't new to the county. And then some what we call the Amelia lifestyle type posts, right? Talk about the quality of life, or like, oh, we have multiple restaurants, we have recreation, those sorts of things. Pictures with dogs always do really well. Dogs and babies, really helpful. I always say, tell localities, sex sells, but you can't use sex, but you can use dogs and babies. It goes a long way. Julia, would you be willing to talk a little bit more about these additional comments?
Sure. Yeah. So, this is just some of the general comments around or guidelines around when you're merging accounts. So making sure that you keep the one that has the most followers and then point audiences from the other one to the account that you want to keep, making sure that you're messaging ahead of time and giving folks an opportunity to follow the primary county page. You want to make sure that you begin updating the page that you're going to keep with the content that you plan to post. So again, we didn't spend a ton of time auditing the Amelia page because it wasn't very active. So you'll want to make sure that you're posting, say 3 times a week regularly as you start to migrate audiences over, because you want them to go there and see that there's actually something there for them to follow. And then you want to link the Facebook icon on your website directly to the Facebook page that the county is going to manage. You really want to drive people to that one source of information rather than having fractured audiences across multiple accounts. And then just a general tip for increasing your Facebook following over time is to invite people who like your posts to like your page. So if you have, say, 100 likes on a post, you can actually click on it and see all the people, and there's a little invite button, and you just hit invite, invite, invite. And that's a way to help increase your following.
I'll say 2 other things before we get into the ad part. We didn't look at, especially given the constraints that y'all are under in terms of kind of staff time and resources, honestly, I think Facebook is the most critical place for you guys to be. And I would highly encourage you to get to the point where you're posting 3 to 5 times a week there before you think about adding Instagram. And that would be more for tourism, right? And then potentially, we'll talk about this later, but LinkedIn would be more for that business attraction, right, for outside. But really, you want this to be rolling for you. Our experience of Southside Virginia is Facebook. I think it's also because we have a challenge with our internet has become a great communication tools for even people in their 20s and 30s, which is lower than for most the rest of the nation, because people can pull up information so quickly and engage and interact so quickly. So if there was one place you were and nowhere else, I would recommend it be Facebook. The other thing you should know about Facebook as a caveat is we really feel like this is important for y'all to be aware of is if you're taking staff time and energy to be posting 3 to 5 times a week, you really need to have a small ad spend put behind that, even if it's just $200 or $300 a month, because Facebook is pay to play. And I have a great chart when I do my marketing classes to talk about of the percentage of people who like your page, how many people see your post. So before Facebook was publicly traded, it was like 20% or 30% even of people who liked your Facebook page would be able to, if you posted something, it would automatically pop up in their feed. But as Facebook has become more popular, as it's become more about making a profit, right? Facebook is not free. Facebook is not, and that's what people like to think of it as. You have to pay to play, right? So we recommend, especially even if you're spending 10 or 20 hours a month of staff time doing this, it's going to be like you're painting your car, but not putting gas in it if you don't put a little bit of an ad spend behind it to get reach, right? It's not totally free to actually kind of optimize the work and the time you're putting into it to reach an audience. We gave a couple of examples here to talk about that. The light campaign would be something we would encourage y'all to do early on as you're actually having content there, just to kind of announce it to your citizenry, right? To let them know, oh, we have this thing, we have this resource now. So we have some general ideas there, but that's something when you're thinking about time and energy and resources, budgeting a little bit of time. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting, I believe, some of your staff time because you're not really putting gas in that car. And then there's a whole other piece. If you decide down the road to really lean into agritourism or those sorts of things, Facebook is a great place to do advertising for tourism, and you can actually advertise on Instagram and Facebook collectively from your Facebook account. So that's just something to be aware of in the future. Virginia Tourism Corporation has some amazing grants, and we've worked with clients on accessing those to help. You know, Halifax County, we just did a campaign for them where I think they had a $7,000 ad spend for the campaign that was grant paid for, and they reached close to 750,000 people. So it was a minimal spend that was grant funded that really blew it out of the water in terms of reach. So that's just something in terms of cost for ads. Facebook can be very inexpensive. I know it's big numbers for counties, but it can be a very effective thing to do. When you're ready for LinkedIn, when you're ready for Instagram, we have some ideas or recommendations for you guys, but that's just for down the road. Right now, I think it's getting that Facebook going for you. Okay, that was Facebook. Any questions? Any thoughts? Anyone need clarity on anything? Okay, I'll keep going with the fire hose of information. Julia, would you be willing to talk a little bit about the website analytics and kind of the trend we saw in the data for the year and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we ended up focusing on last year, the second half of the year, because we saw kind of a big shift in the data, and there was a big drop in return visitors, or there was an increase in return visitors to the site looking at the last half. I think probably what happened was there was some kind of setting that was changed on the website so that it stopped counting people who were within the county employees going to the site and using the site. So once that data was removed, it gave a more accurate picture of who's visiting the site and how they're using it. So, okay, let's see. So I can, Ashley, can you move down the next to the next page?
Now, Rose, let me get background for a second. So thankfully, your county already had Google Analytics installed on the back end, which means it's been tracking all this information. So we were able to just pull it up from the last 6 months. And it gives you, this is anyone with Google Analytics can get this type of information from their website. So even here you can see that you have a huge amount of young people that are actually accessing your site, especially those under 35, 44. You have very few people older, which is kind of to be expected, although this is not normally, usually it's kind of the same across. And even for some of our clients, it's quite high for 45 plus. So you have an interesting spread in terms of your age demographic that I think some promotion and other things can help fix. Sorry, Julia, keep going.
Oh, no, that's right. So the next page is just a list of the top viewed pages, and it's, kind of what we would expect. I don't think that we saw some huge surprises there. Um, and if you go to the next page, Ashley, so this is sort of where I explain, there was this big drop in traffic. You can see it at the bottom of the screenshot. And this was just seeing, repeated county employees visiting the site. So taking that data out gave us a better picture of how the site's actually being used.
So currently, you can see it's fairly heavily, I would say, underutilized at this point, right? Because a lot of the traffic before really was more staff keeping it updated than people actually going to it. So some campaign or work about actually, and I know Ashley's already talked about this, is work with the new site and the investment to the new site, taking some time and energy to really promote it out to the public, right? We've even talked about having a table at the fair or some other things with some potential swag or material that shows the URL on it or something to really encourage people to check it out. Could be something to do locally. Sorry, Julia.
No, you're good. I'm having a little trouble seeing what's on the screen. Is it the website analytics analysis?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So, while there weren't some, really surprising results from the pages that are most viewed, there were a couple things to note. So, building permits ranked the 11th most viewed page. However, this topic generates a large amount of county inquiries. So, a recommendation would be to make it really easy to find. Uh, it's taking a lot of time of county employees to process those inquiries when they come in. People will come and wait, they'll have to be with them for 20 to 30 minutes. So the more information that we can give to people online will help, just that little bit. I know that we still want to have that personal interaction, but maybe it'll cut the time down a little bit. And then the directory. Amelia employees often field requests for county phone numbers for various individuals. I know that there's a phone directory that's coming down the line, but the county directory wasn't a top ranked page, so it should be prioritized on the new site.
And making sure that contact us is really easy to find and get to. Some of these recommendations, we'll get to there in a second, but we work with Ashley to talk about the new site and the site map and the structure and how these can impact how the new site map is being built out, so it's more impactful moving forward. I'm on the front end analysis now, Julia. Is there any major takeaways you have for this section you feel like, or the kind of big standout details?
Let me just flip through real quick. There's a lot going well for the site, I would say.
Sorry, to clarify, this is an analysis of the site that's being built, not your old site. So we use this as an opportunity to look at we realize the old site's being replaced anyway. So we use this to look at how can we make sure the new site's being built in the best way possible. Sorry, Julia, I wanted to add this.
That's good. One thing that the Amelia County team had surfaced was that they want to make it really easy for residents to find the information they're looking for. And we can see that with the site map that there's not a lot of deep navigation to get to where people are going. It's within three clicks. The primary image is strong and it evokes the feelings that we had heard as takeaways about, what the county wants to convey. And the logo placement is familiar and clear on the website. There are a couple things that Ashley, I know, is working with the team on, in terms of areas for improvement. But for the most part, the site's in a really good spot. So we just have a screenshot of the site navigation, which it'll look cleaner than this when it's all designed out. Some other things that are going well, the live, work, play theme, we like that. There's some question potentially about work versus do business, because work could unintentionally indicate that that it means employment information as opposed to information for folks looking to start a business in the county. So that may just be something to think about in terms of the verbiage. You're already thinking about users of the website, what they're looking for, and how you can get there in 3 or fewer clicks. So that's great. Some other things that are going well. I know that it's part of the functionality build out to have, when you hover over the top navigation items, you get a square that has headers and sub navigation items. So it's really easy to just scan and look at find the information that you're looking for without having to do a lot of clicking, which is great.
That can look overwhelming when you click on it, but it's helpful because otherwise what's going to happen is someone's going to have to try to figure out what page do I go to go down to the next level. So it's making the navigation really clear for your users.
There are, were some things that weren't super clear in terms of what the intention is with certain pages. There are some things that looked like they were in the top navigation that would be bouncing people off of the site kind of early that maybe we would want to have on a landing page so that people are spending more time on your site potentially. Let's see, so I talked about linking off page.
We won't go through all the areas because I think Ashley's working hard to kind of engage to make sure those things are moving forward. I think in terms of brand consistency and aesthetic appeal, one of the big things we talked about is working on maybe building out, there's a recommendation coming up, your actual kind of library of high quality images that you don't have to worry about being grainy or other things, because the beautiful sites that people like or that y'all use as an example, or Ashley as an example, involve beautiful imagery, right? So if you don't have that beautiful imagery to go with the site, it's kind of it's not a helpful thing. We also had some things around search engine optimization and structure that we believe that the site's currently being built out to have them, but Ashley has it as a checklist to check with that vendor to make sure they're done for you guys as the site is being completed. They're kind of best practices. Really just make sure when someone's searching for Amelia County, y'all come up appropriately and what you have to offer comes up. We also had some recommendations around content forms and contact information based especially on staff input and how to make the website work to save staff time, right? So keep that personableness, but actually save time overall. Julia, do you have any other big picture things about website we might want to mention?
I don't think so. I do want to applaud Ashley because I think she's doing a great job with the site.
Yeah. It's a lot of work. We tend to have to work with some client lead as we build websites, and it's a lot of work for that client lead to do that work. So we talked, this is something I mentioned, the other existing owned channel survey. And this is really us looking at all the things y'all currently have at your fingertips to use for communications that don't have to involve starting something new. It's more about optimizing the efforts that are already being done. So y'all already mentioned the electronic board at the park, at the industrial park. We talked about even signboards in front of firehouses. You have some rolling signs that are used for emergencies or other purposes, but even some community building bulletin boards. So thinking about bulletin boards at the Dog Estate Distilling Company, the public library, poultry services, which hopefully Southern States, right? So there's bulletin boards throughout. So some of these things the county wants to promote, thinking about having a list of, oh, we have this flyer to put up or this announcement. Let's make sure we have someone put it up at each of these bulletin boards for ourselves. It's kind of it's a very old school thing to do, but I think makes a lot of sense for this community to make sure you're doing that in a consistent way. And there's an opportunity to even think about offering to install a bulletin board in other locations, like potentially the Food Lion. Would they be willing to have a community bulletin board up, or something like that, especially as you're one grocery, do you have the Dollar General?
Yeah.
How many do we have?
Three or
Three.
four.
Yeah, that would be another great place, to think about having seeing if they'd be willing to kind of aid in that collective communication for the county. We also talked about partner organizations that you have that could also be thinking about leveraging the public schools. The public schools are an amazing way. So if you have like a big event or something, seeing if they'd be willing to hand out a flyer for students to take home, to reach parents, one of the primary way to reach your citizens is through the public schools. So thinking about some of these partners, the Chamber of Commerce, which I know staff is already working on partnering with for clear communications and things like that to make sure you're leveraging each other's resources. We talked also about events, especially since y'all are more kind of traditional in some ways, is to think about some of these events and maybe even think about considering buying a banner or something like that, a tabletop stand, and having some materials out with some things that people frequently ask about, or to promote some things, or even your and promoting your social at these events would be a very small thing. Potentially could be staffed or not staffed, depending, but a way to really reach people where they're already at and interact with them. We also talked about, and this is something, I don't know, Taylor, if you want to speak to, thinking about how to leverage even the Board of Supervisors meetings a little bit. We had talked about potentially making sure there already is a moment for like kind of updates, but making sure there's a moment for staff to let Taylor know, oh, here's something we're trying to get the word out about. Let's make sure we mention it at the Board of Supervisors meetings, right? So if there's a reporter there or something like that, or even just the board member, but often those supervisors are very connected with their constituents, just like as you guys are, in terms of the areas you serve or who you're representing, and they can get the word out through that word of mouth leveraging. So just being more intentional about using that event in and of itself to get the word out. And then we talked about some other meetings and things like that. Finally, we talked about existing mailings. So mailings are very effective, we found, in rural communities, but they're very expensive, especially the postage and the printing. But y'all are already sending out some mailings, especially in the village of Amelia, which is small, right? But thinking about things that are already being mailed out and how a small insert or something else could be put into an announcement. I know the town of Farmville does a little newsletter. I'm not saying you have to do a newsletter, but once in a while, if there's something you really want to promote, it could be used in the existing mailings that are already going out. Okay, we have like 4 minutes left. Julia, do you have anything to add in that existing channels that I missed?
No, I think we're good there.
Okay. So this is where we came up with actual kind of what we would see as kind of with your limited staff time and energy and resources, where we would see the priorities being. So phase one, you're already doing, right? Which is the build out and launch of the website. And this is something we'd always recommend for clients anyway, is to make sure your own channel, your website, is doing really well for you, because everything else needs to be pointing back to it, right? So that needs to be functioning well for you. So we have kind of these recommendations we already did, but we also recommend thinking about a launch plan, like I already mentioned, to help promote the website and its resources to your community. So they don't just they actually encourage them to start visiting it more regularly because they realize that they're going to find it there. So a press release, targeted Facebook campaign, swag to hand out an event, especially if you have some grant funding or otherwise, thinking about something you could actually hand out that people, whether that be a little tote bag, like not the canvas ones, but a less expensive one, or a pen or something like that that has a URL on it. Ashley, you have a thought?
The most popular one that we've noticed at like the military campaign stuff are the speech markers.
Yeah.
Logos.
There you go. Yeah, so that could be, there's lots of different levels of swag and types of things you could have to hand out to kind of promote that new site. We kind of always say people pay a lot of money, even sometimes for us to build websites, and we're like, yeah, but if you don't, it's not if you build it, they will come, right? It takes some energy to get them there. We also talked about looking at the Virginia Tourism Commission grants. There's a cycle coming up now. That could be a way, you're going to have to put it under tourism, but it can be a way to actually pay for some photography and videography that you would be able to use on your website. So that's a potential like kind of state funded way to help build out the resources and the look and feel of your site. And then also coming up with a monthly or quarterly evaluation and update schedule for the content on the site, so it actually stays up to date. Phase two, really for you guys, we recommended is creating a communication syncing strategy. So this is based on our staff conversations and other things, really looking at a way for staff to kind of come together collectively to sync communications. But that way there can still be shared responsibilities across the board, but there's a consistent way. And I believe the idea is there's already an existing monthly meeting that's held after the Board of Supervisors meeting. So the staff already raised this possible solution of this syncing communications can become a recurring part of that meeting, right? So everything that came out of the meeting, oh, what are we going to communicate out? Is there anything else that wasn't at that meeting we need to communicate? So just coming up with kind of coordinated schedule that will help with optimizing efforts. And then we talked once again about some grant opportunities, especially around wayfinding signage to brand the village, some things like that was another idea. Then we talked about another phase 2 item is, this is more about the syncing. Let me see. Oh, the Facebook presence and how to coordinate that. One of our potential, if you cannot afford to have a full-time person or outsource it, is having each staff member own a particular day with a particular topic, right? So maybe Brady on Wednesdays post about business resources, right? And Ashley on Tuesdays post about, but that way they each have a day and a known topic and they can kind of coordinate that way. Finally, our third recommendation is around that brand development, but really taking some time for, it seems like there was a lot of interest on building enthusiasm and excitement about the county with the citizenry. So maybe even involving them and coming up with your brand story and who you are, to really think about who Amelia County is. One of my favorite ideas is this picture drawing contest, asking school students to draw, what do you want Amelia County to look like in 20 years, right? And having like a contest to see what do they think of Amelia County and where do they want it to go. There's some messaging directions and workshops and ideas for how to kind of get some synergy or things around thinking about how you talk about the county. This is kind of, I've seen quite a few counties go through a similar process in the last few years of kind of coming up with a honed identity and messaging to pull around. And that can be very helpful, especially if you feel like your identity is being encroached on by neighboring localities or things like that. And then expanding your reach. So these are secondary ideas that we feel like once your website is up, once your Facebook is going consistently, and you have like kind of the sync plan, looking at tourism as being an opportunity to start promoting a little bit more consistently. And then also some messaging, especially around economic development. So creating a one sheet for industrial sites or things like that, or even just about your business resources and what you have to provide that can be handed out. Those sorts of things, and maybe even some targeted public relations pitching. Okay, at the end, at your leisure, we have this addendum of county assets index, and this was brought up by some of you in the meeting, but also by county staff. We have a list of parks, historic attractions, entertainment, business support partner organizations, right? So that are serving this area that provide business supports currently outside of county staff, county specific business resources and unique attributes. I would encourage y'all, if you have time, when you have a light meeting coming up, it might be fun to take this list and for y'all each to add other resources you can think of. This is not a comprehensive list. It's just to get your ideas flowing. And we're sure we've missed things, right? So taking some time to think about, oh, what do I know about resources or things that I think should be added to this kind of resource list that can be featured on the website or other places. But this is kind of meant to kind of get you thinking about things to be proud of, things to be enthusiastic about for Amelia County. That's a lot of information in a very short amount of time. Is there any questions or anything I can answer? Or?
It's the second time I've seen it, and I'm gonna have to absorb it. Imagine what it is the first time.
Yes, that's right.
I think it was a 12-inch fire hose.
Yes, that's right.
Very, very well done.
Yes.
Very,
Yes.
very comprehensive. I mean, it's impressive.
It's a joy to work with you all and provide this help through ILSA. I think, now that you all have seen this and seen the process, you can maybe tell your existing businesses that are ready for this level of service that they can do this through the SPDC. So it benefits us for you all to see what the process
Sure.
this is, and then you can communicate it out to your business.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Very well done. Any more questions?
I'd like to thank Ilsa and Julia and Sherry for having put this together. You know, some of us who've been around for a while, you have these opportunities and you find out the staff is doing more of it and we're doing the driving and whatnot to get to the finish line. That was the opposite here. The letterpress did a really, really nice job and we appreciate, the opportunity to be the recipient of it.
Yes. Absolutely.
I enjoy not being on the antagonistic end. That's actually one of the things I enjoy not being a reporter is I get to like, let me give you a piece of advice. Say it this way, not this way.
Well, wonderful. Appreciate that. Okay, if there's no more discussion on that, we'll move to the Chamber of Commerce and membership application. I believe we need a motion for that, correct?
Right.
So what we're planning to do, unless you want to.
I would just, staff is gonna is making an appeal. The county in some way, shape or form should be a member somewhere. And because the EDA worked so well with that joint, event up there last spring, I guess it was now.
May, I think.
We think it would be they would be the proper vehicle to do it. So we're recommending that the, EDA, Amelia County EDA, become a member, dues paying member of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yep. And what, we would be at what?
Which level?
Which level? Nonprofit government, $50 a year, is that what it is? So essentially, we would like to join and it'd be $50 a year. If there's any questions, please voice them. If not, I'll look for a motion to get approval to join the Chamber of Commerce as the EDA.
Make a motion.
We do have a more recent, application.
Okay,
So I think
well,
that we-
could we nominate you to complete it? Since you know it backwards and frontwards?
To do
Thank
everything
you.
but write the check.
True.
Yeah, okay, well, I mean, or Taylor or, you could help out as well, but that's $50 a year, that's the
That is
correct?
correct.
Okay. So Robert made a motion, we need a second.
Second.
Second, all in favor of joining the Chamber of Commerce, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll join that and it'll be great. And it works well because we partner with the Business Appreciation Day. All right, so that we were going to talk a little bit about doing the same kind of thing as we did last year, have a little bit of discussion, and then we will need some action on that too, right?
Yes, sir.
So I would open up the floor for any comments or any discussion for doing another Business Appreciation Day like we did last year.
I guess first thing we need to do is talk to Molly and see if she's in the chamber ready to partner with us again
Yes,
this
we
year.
are. We're ready. But we do have a couple of questions.
Okay,
And number one being the location.
okay.
We'd like for it to be over on the court side, and plus the fact, they may be having court on that day. We were just lucky last year that it wasn't on the
That's
court
right.
day. So is there someplace else that we can have? And you could find out if they have court that.
Mondays and
particular day.
Tuesdays, you know, it's court day.
Would it work good for some staff or maybe EDA members to show up at the next chamber meeting and see if that could be placed on their agenda and have the discussion right there with everybody in the room?
Sure.
And come back with a recommendation next month?
Good idea.
No, it's in May. The next month is April.
All right.
Right. The next chamber meeting is in May?
No, the next
What?
thing would be is tonight.
Night.
Tonight.
Tonight at 6 o'clock.
Okay. Well,
It's on the corner there of Court, is that Court Street that runs there?
above the OASCS office.
Well, since time is of the essence, it sounds like, should we vote to do it or not do it? And then authorize Ms. Scott to meet with her team. She is a representative of the EDA. She is going to be at the meeting tonight, right?
Right.
And then kind of just figure it out. I mean, I don't know that, does it matter to any of us where we hold it? Just trying to expedite that, because if you need a plan in 2 months, you're probably wanting to put some.
One last year, so.
To have it in the courthouse square though, like on grass, so we have to have the judge's permission for that.
Judges.
Would that interfere with?
We have
the
had
court
to have
proceeding?
as long as.
And parking might be the issue.
Courts are usually Monday, Tuesday.
Right.
You never can tell when the circuit court's gonna be, but it's generally on Fridays. So Wednesday, Thursday should be okay with, as far as the courts go. And I can verify that for the, what week in May are we talking about?
Generally after Mother's Day or after Amelia Day.
Last year we did it on an EDA meeting day.
Yeah.
Right, which was a
Tuesday.
Tuesday, it was after Amelia Day.
See, there'll definitely be court that day, Tuesday. Any objection to move it to Wednesday?
Not for me.
Okay.
As far as Daryl, they had it all ready for Amelia
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter to
That
them,
was-
just slide another day.
That's right.
I propose May the 10th. And I'll try to verify those court dates. and
So we'll be
make sure
here,
I'm on the
we'll
10th.
be here May the 9th and then again May the 10th.
Yep.
Or do you wanna, maybe in April, could we decide to change the May meeting from the 9th to the
The 10th.
10th?
That would be
And just
wonderful.
meet over here
Yep.
early Wednesday, and
Yes.
just make one day out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that, I think.
That's good. So that's May 11th.
Be May 10th,
Mm-hmm.
because the 11th is a Thursday.
Yeah.
Our meeting would have been the 9th.
Right.
So we'll make a meeting.
May 10th.
Yep.
You do that. If the chamber agrees to May 10th, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Do you need somebody there, Marty, or are you just gonna take care of it tonight?
Well, I mean, you're perfectly welcome to come. But I can inform them of
Okay.
what we decided here. And I'm sure they go along with it. Because we were concerned about the court date.
Right.
Yeah.
Interfering with that, and we also wanted to use a grass area over
Right.
there.
Mhm.
And because of the situation with the bathroom was right there last year.
Yep.
And the food vendors were right here.
Yeah.
And we think it was the most sanitary thing to do.
And they've got a container in the parking lot over there now.
All right. So then, the last thing would be is just to, correct me if I'm wrong, we need an action to, or did we do an action the last time that said we were gonna do this every year?
It was gonna be an annual.
And
Yeah, for them, we don't. We already committed to that. Okay,
Okay, we're covered.
good deal. And we have no reason for a closed session today?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
First time.
Sorry, is any questions on the Business Appreciation Day? I moved us along without, okay, well then we're gonna move along. I'd look for a motion. If there's no other discussion, we can adjourn. Everyone's ready.
Very good.
Second.
Second, all in favor of adjourning the meeting, please vote aye.
I'm sure, of course, you and I sort of cited to the appreciation day. Confirmed